A short time ago, we ranked the 25 best video game consoles of all time, a video that was universally loved and appreciated. Yes, 25 covers a lot of systems and a lot of video game history, but it doesn't even scratch the surface of how many different pieces of hardware have been released around the world over the past several decades. Some consoles were ambitious but fatally flawed, from one thing or 50 Wii U. Others amounted to little more than a depressing effort to make a quick buck. And somewhere among all these were systems that offered to keep your beer cool, to oddities trying to get in on the popularity of VHS and laserdisc. So all in all, you've got some very, very weird games consoles out there. Let's just see how strange it's been over the years as we look at the weirdest consoles ever released. And we don't even have Soldier Boy in this list. That was on the 25 best consoles list, trust me. Hello viewers, it's good to see you. I'm Will from Cultured Vultures, and if you like videos like this, then why don't you like and subscribe, and if you're feeling generous, just give that bell a flick of the finger and you could be in for a treat. The treat is more videos. Number 10, the Mattel Hyperscan. Hyperscan? I barely know her. Haha. No, this console genuinely sucks. There's a good chance if you're a certain age you'll remember this horrible piece of plastic nothingness. A weird half-hearted effort by Mattel releasing to stores in October 2006. The Mattel Hyperscan was an extremely unpleasant to hold, let alone use controller, a card system that insisted players swap out cards in the consoles just to play a different character, and graphics that would have looked basic in 1999. Again, just to reiterate, this was 2006, the year of oblivion, and it was also the year they took Pluto away from us. I don't want to talk about it. There were some pretty dreadful games for the Hyperscan, including 3 of the worst games ever released under the Marvel banner, and holy moly, that is saying something. A whopping total of 5 games were released for the Hyperscan, and after they were all universally panned, the Mattel Hyperscan went reeling into the night in 2007. Imagine Skylanders, but without the charming figures, or the charming gameplay, or for that matter the charm. Hyperscan wasn't so much a failure. One saving grace is that Hyperscan was such a failure that I am not coming across discarded gill grunts in my crisp cupboard. Number 9, Light BL6 console. You can consider this the catch entry for all brands wanting gamers to buy something, right along the KFC console that never actually came out. McDonalds didn't let us down, as you will see later. When it comes to the functional marketing gimmick known as the Light BL6 console, we can only stare in wonder and dream of a video game console that can also cool as many as 2 whole beers. It also runs a projector for your games, which is actually kinda cool. Released in 2020, a small batch was sold online, with the proceeds going to charity. While silly, this mini computer shaped into a 6-pack of Bud Light was clearly built for people who wanted something that wasn't just promoting a brand, although it did do that in no uncertain terms. The BL6 can play games like Tekken 7 and Soul Calibur 6, as well as a few other games that came packed in with the system. Unfortunately, that is it for titles you can play without some tinkering at least, but the fact that it works, and by all accounts works fairly well running Windows 10, is kind of impressive. Just don't expect to find one for sale very often, if ever. Number 8, Ouya. This bizarre little cube had a lot of potential behind it when it released in 2013. An affordable gaming device that promised a deep, talented community to help shape its future? I'm in. It was a solid concept, and even the bad reviews pointed out that the Ouya could be something special given a little time and some firmware updates. The system could overcome most of its shortcomings, which came down to uninspired performance across the board. Also, the controller kind of sucked. I mean, look at that battery placement. Unfortunately, those updates never happened. The games themselves never really raised above the level of mobile games of the day. Despite its low cost and a relatively decent amount of power beneath its little cubed body, the Ouya could not get out of the gate. Less than 200,000 units were sold during its 2-year lifespan, which at least saw some fun controversy over some funding headaches and about 1 million memes. If the Ouya was released today, Twitter would be all over it like a pig on cube-shaped shit. And if you are an Ouya stan, let us know in the comments. Your family misses you. Number 7, the Action Max. As well as sounding like a parody made in It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, the Action Max took some pretty bad decisions. To the max. There's an impressive amount of hubris behind the Action Max, and its notion that people would be willing to play a video game consoles that ran on freaking videotapes. Freaking videotapes, my friends. If that's not bad enough, it also required to hook up to an actual VCR, which at the time of this very ugly grey console's release in 1987, still ran you about a cost of $100 plus. But the system made big promises over being able to play games whose interactivity with the live action footage on the screen would make players feel like they were truly part of the action, which didn't even remotely happen when people played this dull little garbage heap. Only 5 games were made, including one based on the 1983 helicopter movie Blue Thunder, which isn't even in the top 3 Thunder movies next to Tropic and Days Of. Rather incredibly, none of the games on the Action Max couldn't output to the TV, which feels like a big problem. And game over only ever happened when the stupid tapes ran out. The Action Max disappeared within a year and literally no one cared. Number 6, the Viewmaster Interactive Vision. Come on, you might be saying at this point. You can't just combine words and shape the fabric of reality with something as ridiculous as the video game system from the guys who own the trademark on the anachronistic Viewmaster. Unfortunately, it's true, and the Viewmaster Interactive Vision is one of the more infamous consoles we've covered so far. Look at the controller. Go on, look at it. Aside from having one of the worst controllers ever made, the Viewmaster Interactive Vision also decided maybe the VCR thing will work this time. It was a series of very strange decisions that made this console more of a curio than anything you'd want to play. What makes the Viewmaster Interactive Vision so weird is the fact that the design seems to have come from people that have never seen a video games console before. 7 terrible games later, featuring characters from the likes of Disney and Sesame Street, this ugly brick of a console was gone. Viewmaster Interactive Vision? More like, oh disaster, my wife has taken my kids vision. Number 5, the Apple Pippin. Apple making its own game console wasn't inherently a bad idea, but the company was in a weird place before Steve Jobs returned to help turn the company into the powerhouse it is today. If you think the company is creatively bankrupt without Steve Jobs at the helm now, wait until you see what they were up to in the 90s. Seemingly everyone and their mums was putting out video game systems, and Apple was no exception, releasing the Pippin in 1996. This oddball promised to be unlike its competitors in Sony, Sega and Nintendo by offering everything from multimedia support to a deep library of good games. From the moment you see the controller, which makes our hands hurt just from looking at the horrible boomerang design, you get the sense you are in for a weird experience. The problem with the Pippin came down to a few things, particularly the fact that this nearly $600 console wasn't really great for any of its touted uses, which included internet browsing, a multimedia player and a video game console. The console part was particularly depressing, with just 25 games released until Steve Jobs shut down the whole thing when he returned to Apple in 1997, proving John Carmack right when he said he hated video games, but he did let you pretend your phone was a beer, so we'll call it even. Number 4, the Telstar Arcade. Ah yes, if Homer Simpson made video game consoles, there's a good chance it would look something like this Buck Wild Games console. While the Coleco Telstar Arcade looked kind of cool as a massive triangle of gaming entertainment sporting a steering wheel, a light gun, and a control deck with knobs on for playing Pong-like games can be, just try to imagine playing the damn thing. It wasn't easy in 1977 when this ambitious effort released to stores, and players responded by virtually ignoring the Telstar Arcade altogether. Imagine being a child back then and having to try and convince your parents that you weren't going to use it to try and rob a bank, presumably by confusing the guards into submission. Which is a shame, because while the Telstar Arcade, while imperfect, was the most advanced Telstar system that Coleco had ever manufactured. Remember that this wasn't even the 80s yet, and companies were still trying to figure out what worked best. This was an interesting, weird experiment on paper, with 4 multi-game cartridges released, but an ultimately failed one. Number 3, the Super Lady Cassette Vision. If you're British like we are, you probably heard about Yorkies. The chocolate bar, definitely for blokes. Top blokes at that. With that in mind, you know what the girls need in return? Their own video games console. At least that was the idea behind the Japan exclusive Super Lady Cassette Vision, released as a variant of its poor selling Super Cassette Vision console in 1985. Obviously, with its bright pink exterior covering virtually every surface of the system, it was clearly a console that girls could only play. A man touched one once, and look what happened to him. The Super Lady Cassette Vision came packaged with the game Milky Princess, which was famously a video game that only girls could play. Thank goodness, as they were physically incapable of playing any other games. Can you imagine that? Girls playing games? Don't worry, viewers, I assure you my comments are steeped in irony. We don't know how much the Super Lady Cassette Vision sold, but given how the Super Cassette Vision moved approximately 20,000 units, and we aren't playing the Super Cassette Vision 5 Pro right now, this time there's equal rights. I guess that Epoch's last-ditch effort to stop the Famicon's momentum in Japan didn't do all too well. Number 2. Pioneer LaserActive. Do you remember laserdiscs? They were like DVDs, except they were roughly the same size as a vinyl record and were very expensive. While the tech behind Laserdisc was neat, it wasn't enough to overtake VHS. The Pioneer LaserActive was fascinating on paper, but given the $900 price tag, $900! Christ, that you could buy a house with that back then, just to get the base system. And a game library that consisted mostly of horrid edutainment games, no one was buying this weird thing. Interestingly, the Pioneer LaserActive could play Sega Genesis or TurboGrafx 16 games, but only if you purchased the $600 control pack for each of those. Yikes. Could you imagine of spending a total of $1,200 just to play Rise of the Robots? Released in 1993, it's astonishing that the LaserActive managed to last for 3 years before it stopped becoming quite so active and became more laser dead. Maybe if it was shaped like some good old nugs, it would have done a bit better. And number 1, McDonald's Chicken McNugget console. If you've been dreaming about a China exclusive console from McDonald's that can only play Tetris and is shaped like a chicken nugget, 2023 might have been the greatest year of your life. Our choice for the weirdest games console ever is a marketing product that we dearly wish McDonald's had brought to other parts of the world. I mean, look at this adorable little freak. It really does look like a chicken nugget, and it really does play actual licensed Tetris. The system was made to celebrate the 40th anniversary of Chicken McNuggets being introduced in McDonald's in 1983, and we couldn't tell you why this handheld was never released in North America, Europe, or anywhere else for that matter. Only 400,000 of these were ever made, but you can find one on eBay for a pretty good price. But we must warn you, you shouldn't eat this, even if it does have about as much real chicken in as an actual open brackets chicken close brackets nugget. Actually, know what? You should eat one, and we'll give Jamie Oliver a call just to record his reaction. It will be hilarious. And that was our list for the 10 weirdest consoles ever released. Did you have any weird consoles in your time? There are many out there. I, for some reason, have in my possession a Tiger R-Zone with the big screen. I'm not sure why I have it. It's just an LCD game with a projector in the back. But yeah, there are some weird consoles on there. If you've got a weird console, let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you soon.